we are breaking down all aspects of Yankee baseball. This is the Bronx Pinstripe Show with your hosts, Andrew Rotondi and Scott Reinen. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripe Show. Very happy to be joined by Pete Caldera of the Bergen record, NorthJersey.com, coming at us from Toronto. The Wi-Fi north of the border apparently works, which I was a little worried about. So, Pete, how's it going today?
Going great. Thanks for having me. It's another great day in Ontario. Hopefully, spring will come somewhere in the Northeast. We haven't seen much sun or warmth yet this year, but a lot of winds, though.
That's true. Yeah, it's the weather's been shit. The baseball's been awesome, which I feel like has not been the case for the past couple of years. Ilya and I were just looking up before you joined us. This is the best record the Yankees have had through this many games since 2010, actually. And previously, 2003, they had a better record to this point in the season. But yeah, I don't think anyone really saw the team starting out this hot. I think a challenge that this team has faced over the past couple of years is slow starts. Really, if you identify April problems under Aaron Boone, it's been sloppy baseball, guys not hitting, the pitching being inconsistent, but that's the complete opposite of what we've seen so far this year. Are you a little bit surprised by their start?
Yeah, frankly, I am. Especially when you consider the first part of that start, they were 7-6 and weren't gaining much traction, and some of the old problems with hitting and runners in scoring position was cropping up. They were getting some, inconsistent pitching. Loizaga wasn't on track. Some of the guys in the bullpen that you anticipate being reliable, were kind of off to inconsistent starts, and they just weren't hitting much. And then suddenly everything's, that part about what they were talking about in spring training about having a more balanced and athletic lineup. Well, you're seeing some of that now.
Boone had a quote right around that time where he was saying, "I'm confident we'll be where we need to be offensively." And I kind of scoffed at that quote because, that's in what I call a Booneism. He has said those things over the past couple of years. And I was still saying, well, I'll believe it when I see it because I haven't seen it from this team for a lot of years. But I think we are seeing the differences that the Yankees made in the offseason to that lineup come to fruition. Rizzo's been great all year. IKF has been great after the first few games. And, it really provides them flexibility and a diversity in the lineup where if Judge and Stanton struggle on a particular night, well, maybe DJ and Rizzo are going to have good nights because they're different types of hitters. And I think that's, if I had to point to one thing that's different with the lineup, it's that.
Yeah, their balance is bigger. Yeah, and you notice too that after kind of Falefa got off to that rough 1-for-17 start, as hot as he's gotten, Boone's left him in that number 8 spot in that lineup, and I think that speaks to how much better balance they have because they're certainly not getting any offense out of the catching position right now. But throughout that lineup, they were tougher at bats, better at bats, and and you're also seeing that, late in these games, with their pitching keeping it close, that they've been able to find a way, draw a walk, steal a base now with LeCastro, on the bench as a pinch runner. They really are finding more ways to win than they seem to have more tools in the toolbox than they had previous years.
Yeah, I mean, LeCastro, it might sound silly, but even just as a 4th or 5th outfielder defense and a pinch runner, that's not something they've had for the past few seasons.
No, you haven't had a weapon like that. And you're kind of wondering, once they pared down the rosters from 28 to 26, does a guy like LeCastro still have a place and a role on this team? The answer has been yes, and they've been seeing the value of having speed off the bench like that, plus another guy who's a reliable defender in the outfield.
Last night's game, Manoah and Taillon were in a bit of a pitching duel, and it was close. Looked like the Yankees offense was going to do nothing. Judge hits the home run, and then the offense exploded late. That's not something, as you pointed out, that they've done the past couple of years, where maybe even if they won that game, it would be a claw to the finish 2-1 game or something like that. They haven't been able to exhale and just have an offensive outburst. What do you think, not just on the field, do you think there's been a change in the in the clubhouse, in the dugout, maybe everyone's a little bit more relaxed. Has the winning streak provided them a little bit more room to relax? Like, why all of a sudden is the guys we haven't seen do that starting to do that?
I think winning as a whole kind of relaxes the team too, and the way you're rolling like this, it sort of builds upon itself and adds to the confidence. And as you mentioned before, it doesn't have to be one guy carrying the team. It can be a lot of components that add up to winning. But I still think that by and large, this team takes its cues daily from Aaron Judge, and the way he's been playing during this streak has kind of galvanized all that, and given this team, shown this team, where it takes its cues and its personality and its daily fight from. And I think a lot of that starts with Aaron Judge, and certainly as the leader of the clubhouse, and from the offensive side too. The pitchers are kind of, it's the defensive side of the. If it was a football team, it's they have their defensive coordinators and take their cues from guys like Cole and people like that. But for the team every day, I think the way Judge is, and the way Judge has comported himself since the contract stuff happened, because listen, he didn't get off to the greatest start right after that, and there was a lot of static out there about hey, maybe you should have taken this contract, and is it going to be there at the end? And he's been proving daily that bet on himself has been a wager that at least for the time being he's winning.
Yeah, and everything that they've said on the team is it's not a distraction, and certainly they're playing like it's not a distraction. But do you foresee it becoming a distraction at any point this year?
I think it
especially
always
as we get later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it always could be. I mean, listen, if he goes into a slump, and that, I'm sure that's going to be another narrative about, well, then you had this contract out there, and now you could be waltzing into an uncertain free agent period right here. I'm sure that, but I don't think Judge will let it become a distraction. I think it could be a distraction in other areas.
The media,
possibly. I mean, listen,
you guys have to ask the question.
It certainly is a talking point. It's certainly, I mean,
it's
out as long as he's unsigned. It's a narrative. They could have taken care of this in spring training. They could have taken care of it right before opening day. They didn't.
Nope.
And you can really see both sides of this. You could see Judge betting on himself. You could see where the club, didn't want to extend itself beyond where it did, 30-something million per year on the extension. So, I mean, I totally see both sides of it, but I don't think Judge will ever let this become a distraction. I think he is singularly focused on what he's doing and trying to win.
What did you think of the contract they did offer him?
I got to say, I was in the camp where I was surprised, right immediately that once they came with an extension that started with 30 per year, that I thought that would be the number that got it done. It didn't. After my initial surprise, I'm not surprised that Aaron Judge bet on himself. Just having seen how strong a personality he is, how much he believes in himself, and I still certainly do believe that they're better together. That Judge's brand, he has more brand with the Yankees. The Yankees are better with him, not only from an on-field standpoint, but in a marketing and a clubhouse sense, and all that comes with having Aaron Judge on your team. And he's certainly proving right now that he is all that. He's also 30 years old, and no one knows how a player of his size is going to age beyond his prime, and I think that's a lot of risk on the team's end when you're dealing with a contract of that length. But all said, good for Judge on betting on himself, and let's see if it pays off at the end.
I agree with you. They could have gotten it done early in spring training. It was like the first thing they said in spring training is we're going to talk to Aaron Judge about a contract, and then fast forward to the day of opening day and it's not done. And Brian Cashman's giving a press conference about it. I thought the whole thing was just handled poorly. I wonder if 2 weeks prior to that, they offered him what they did, the 7 years and the $30.5 million. That maybe Judge could have said no, but they could have negotiated to something in the middle of what he wants and what they want. But when it's 2 hours before first pitch of the season and that's the offer, it's like, what are you doing, guys? The whole thing was just I think a cluster.
Well, I'll say this. There was oddity all over the place. Once they broke from the 99-day lockout and everything was
99-day lockout. Look at that.
And weirded up. I mean, it was just a strange 3 weeks, really. So
yeah.
I mean, I'll cut the club some slack for that. But the surprising element and the kind of disturbing one, from my view, was that they put the contract out there for public consumption. And what purpose did that serve? And they said it was because of they're trying to be transparent. I doubt they'll ever be this transparent again on a contract negotiation. I'll count me as surprised if that ever happens again, because it hadn't happened in the past. But to me that struck of a management and ownership that was tired of hearing that we didn't spend on Correa and we didn't spend on Semien and we didn't spend on whoever ex free agent you wanted
Freddie
to see
Freeman.
in the Bronx, but we're offering our guy this giant amount of money, and he just turned it down.
Yeah,
that struck me as an ownership and a management group that was tired of hearing how cheap they were. And
absolutely, you never hear the teams from the general manager details of the contract that they offered. I was shocked that. I mean, I figured if we all knew about it, it would have been leaked through you guys, through the media, which is, essentially achieving the same thing, but it's just presenting it in a different way. When it's Cashman up there talking into the microphone, it hits a little bit different. And then Judge had what I thought was kind of a cold comment that he's going to hit free agency and talk to all the teams, and the Yankees will be one of those teams. Like, I don't blame him for that comment. At this point, I think Judge, when he's on the field, is a top 5 player in the game. And as long as he's on the field, he's going to put up numbers and he'll get a ton of bidders on the free agent market. It's really just in my mind about, does he stay on the field? And that's when, if he hits the IL at some point this year, then the talk of, well, maybe you should have taken that 7-year contract.
It's going to be really interesting too, and whether they have a need or not, but just the fact that Steve Cohen is out there, likes to be on Twitter and likes to kind of stir the pot. Boy, if Judge ever hits free agency, I'm going to be checking Steve Cohen's Twitter account daily, maybe hourly.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly will spend anything to put a competitive product, and the Mets have been good this year, so good for them. I actually like it when both teams are good, playing good baseball. I think it's more fun rather than when teams are obviously not playing well. But yeah, man, that could be a villain turn if Aaron Judge ends up signing with the Mets. But hey, if Steve Cohen's willing to offer him the $300 million and the Yankees are not even close to that, can you blame the guy?
Not at all. That's why I think he'd just be in it, even if they didn't have a real interest. I think they would take a lot of delight in kind of tweaking the Yankees as much as they could there with a flirtation.
To my knowledge, that's never happened, right? Where a big free agent has changed teams like that, gone crosstown in New York. I can't think of anyone in recent years that's done that.
I can't either. I mean, way back when, when the Mets were terrible in the early '80s, and Dave Winfield was a free agent. The Mets attempted to go get Winfield. Obviously, signs with the Yankees. I think the same thing went for Reggie Jackson in the early days of free agency. They've competed for free agents, and competed for talent. Obviously, Beltran, when he was in his prime, could have gone probably either way. But I don't think what we're saying here, like have an established superstar across those lines. Yeah, that would be unique.
I always point back to when Bernie Williams supposedly almost signed with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And obviously Bernie was in his prime, homegrown Yankee, one of the best players on that team. That would have been a hell of a move. Like, even I don't even consider Johnny Damon. Like, that's not the same. That doesn't hit the same as if Bernie or Aaron Judge would change teams like that. You wrote something a few days ago about why, what you're seeing differently. What are the keys to the winning streak? And you wrote about the coaching, and Boone credited the infield coaching to their improved defense. If you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really a whole new staff in a lot of ways here, and they've really promoted a lot of the guys that have been traditionally on the analytics side. When you look at a guy like Matt Blake, pitching coach, who's didn't come up from a traditional coaching branch. He was down in player development, and they have more and more of those guys. You're seeing it on the hitting side with Dylan Lawson, Casey Dykes, his assistants, and you got Hensley Mullins was the only ex-big leaguer I think that they signed in the offseason to their coaching staff. So there certainly is a more analytic blend in there, and there's more attention to charts and computer printouts and
sure
those type of things.
But is that a
lot of video and iPad study on
sure
trends and pitching and positioning and the funny thing is that a lot of this positioning stuff that they're doing is probably going to go away next year when they ban the shifts too. I mean,
you think they're going to ban the shifts?
Alignment, not just the Yankees, but the Blue Jays, stole a hit from Rizzo last night playing 4 outfielders. So seeing stuff like that I guess will go by the boards next year when they ban the shift. But there certainly is a more analytic blend to their coaching staff. And I think it's just striking that balance between the traditional on-field choices that you have and the coaching that you get, and then incorporating all the other stuff that very important analytic branch to most clubs now have. How do you incorporate that and strike that balance?
Where do you stand on banning the shift?
I don't like it. I think you should be able to play 8 defensive players out there anywhere you want, or really 7, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't. There's a way to beat the shift. Hit it the other way.
Been saying that for a
decade. Or hit it over the fence.
That's what they've been doing.
Or send it down the line. There's there's ways to attack it from an offensive side. Why punish a creative defense? So I'm not for dumbing down the game. If there's a smarter way to play defense, play it. So I don't care for a ban on it.
Yeah, I've actually swayed, I think, my opinions on this. Initially, I was like, great, it's going to mean more base hits and more balls in play. But it might be it might not actually do what we all want it to do. I actually just spoke to Brian Kenny on a recent episode, and he hates the idea of banning the shift. And he pointed out that you're basically going to forgive the players like Joey Gallo who have been killed by the shift. You're going to forgive those types of players because you're going to ban it and they're going to get more hits, even though they're not going to change their approach. And then that's going to allow general managers to not have to change their rosters because they can continue to fill them with Joey Gallos, who instead of hitting 170 might go back up to 215 or something like that. And it's not going to get the desired outcome, which is, I think, what we all want, is more well-rounded baseball players, because that's a more fun product. More guys that hit to all fields, that can get on base in different ways, run more hits, just, go down the line. It's just a better product. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. Either learn to hit differently, which I'm not holding my breath for because it hasn't happened, or general managers are going to have to start building more well-rounded rosters, which I think is the best possible outcome from this. And I think maybe that's what we started to see with Cashman, right? Like he made decisions in the offseason, get an athletic shortstop, something they didn't have, focus on defense behind the plate, something they didn't have. I mean, a guy like Locastro didn't have a place on this team the last couple of years. Now he's got a place on this team. Rizzo, a well-rounded hitter and a great defensive first baseman. So they've made decisions to their roster. And what we're seeing is obviously winning baseball, but I also think just a better product of baseball.
Yeah, I think for too long, they ignored that old baseball tenet that really strikes true, is that you're only as good as you are up the middle, and the Yankees were extremely shaky up the middle. With the defensive catcher that they were lacking with Sanchez behind the plate all those years, forcing Gleyber Torres into playing shortstop where he clearly wasn't a good fit there, then weakening your up the middle defense, and then really having kind of a black hole in center field when the guy that you relied on and paid, Aaron Hicks, wasn't on the field. They have all those elements in place now. The good defense behind the plate, better, more athletic defense up the middle, and now a center fielder that at least right now you can rely on to be out there and is getting on base at a pretty good clip too. So with all those elements in place, they're a stronger team at the core.
Yeah. And going back to the coaching for a second, you mentioned just blending the analytics a little bit more. I also think, again, they have the players on the field to execute on those better than they have in recent years. I think they've seemingly have been relying on analytics to a certain extent. So it's different this year. Do you think that so they changed a lot of the coaching staff in the offseason, but not the manager? First, were you surprised that they extended Boone even after what, seemed to decline over the past couple of years?
No, I fully expected that, just the way that they were talking, and the way they talk about how they work together, talking about that triangle between ownership, Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, the GM, and Boone, that they were going to keep that group together, and that they didn't necessarily blame Boone for the lack of production from what I think many people thought was a flawed roster, even though it won 92 games, that wasn't necessarily a team that could sustain a long October run. It might have. I mean, listen, when the Yankees played the Atlanta Braves last summer, I think the Yankees had a better record. Right. And then, of course, the Braves take off, and they do it without Acuna and a lot of their big players that they were expected to help carry them. But no, I figured, I thought that Boone would come back, and that they would try to change the team from a roster structure standpoint, instead of changing the man in the manager's seat. But they did change a lot of coaches around.
That was going to be my next point, is that so they changed a lot of the coaches underneath Boone, and Phil Nevin, I thought, got a lot of blame when he exited, and I don't know exactly how much influence he had over Boone, but clearly they did not like that relationship and Nevin's influence on the team and on Boone.
Well, I mean, it's happened before. I mean, Boone and Nevin have been very close for a very long time. They've known each other for
he brought him in 18
decades.
He wanted him,
and sometimes that can act as a shot across the bow to get a manager's attention, to take away a top lieutenant, but especially one that you've had a close personal relationship for a long time. I don't necessarily know if that was the message the Yankees were sending there, because I think they do respect Boone, more than just as a manager. That there is there's a personal element to this relationship that they have, Cashman and Hal and Boone. So I think just when you strip away everything else, that they feel like they work together well, and they wanted to keep it together. And if they change some other structural parts to this team that they could succeed in the way that they expected.
Yeah. And what the win streak does is it obviously provides them a cushion for the inevitable slump that comes to every baseball team throughout the season, and it's not going to crush them. So, I mean, if anything, an early season win streak can save you in that sense. Everyone, the cliche is you don't win the division in April, you only lose the division in April. Well, you can certainly make your chances a hell of a lot better in April, and so far that's what the Yankees have done. Last thing I want to talk to you about is Cole. 2 good starts in a row after a couple shaky starts, been thrown to Trevino. Do you think that is going to be a trend that we see continue?
I think it's a trend that you'll see, not necessarily exclusive in the way that Higashioka was Cole's exclusive catcher for the last 2 years prior. But you're certainly going to see more of Trevino behind the plate for everybody. And, I think that the Yankees have quickly become enamored of Trevino's defense and his leadership behind the plate, and not only his pitch framing skills, but his arm, the general way that he calls a game, the way he's in command behind the plate. He would fall under the title of what they consider an elite defender, and I think he's shown all that. And he's quickly gained the confidence of a pitching staff, and basically done it on the fly with no spring training with this staff. And I think, you're going to see a lot more of Trevino behind the plate. I still think that they respect and like Higashioka and what he brings. And, certainly reminded us in spring training when he was leading the Grapefruit League in home runs that there's some pop in that.
Yeah.
And he's even in sparing play, he's a 10 home run guy per year. So I would consider it right now a timeshare between the two.
Yeah, and maybe that's not how it was going into the season. I mean, heck, we even thought Rortvedt was going to be the backup catcher, and I don't see how he gets on this roster right now with Trevino the way he's playing, unless Higgy completely falls off and they move on from him. But from everything you just said and everything that they've said over the past couple seasons, I don't see that happening as well. So what do you think changed for Cole? I know he's been working on mixing in a cutter a bit more so far this season. I think he's even early in the year, like there was his first start against Toronto, the one in which Vlad Jr. just hit 3 home runs. And that was really the only thing that Cole gave up. I saw flashes in that start where Cole looked great. The end product just didn't look good because he gave up a couple bombs to Vlad. But what have you seen so far this year? Like, what's changed in Cole the last couple times out?
Well, you did hit on it right there, about the cutter. That was a pitch that he'd only thrown, I think, 11% of the time in his first 3 starts when he had a 6+ ERA. And then since he started throwing that 20% of the time in his last 2 starts with Trevino behind the plate, 0 earned runs and over 12 2/3 innings, I think. So, I think that's one element that's been different. Whether the weather had something to do with it, or starting to get a little more familiar with the new rosin bag and the tack that's on that, and of course this is always going to be a storyline with Cole. The grip on the baseball and how that either has been enhanced or improved or not based on what's available to him now. Maybe he's to excuse the pun, coming to grips with that a little better. But I think the incorporation of that cutter and with all the other things that he brings to the table, and starting with that high octane fastball and what he can do off that pitch with the many secondary options he has, I think has made him a better pitcher in the last couple starts.
Yeah, him incorporating the cutter again is a little surprising because he's got an elite 4-seam fastball, and it's been since his his time in Houston, one of the best fastballs in baseball. And maybe we saw hitters. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about the sticky stuff ad nauseum on this show, but I mean, it's very clear. The data shows it. His fastball's getting hit more since that point. And it's not like all of a sudden his fastball sucks, but it's just, it hasn't been as good. So I think the cutter is probably just to give hitters something else, another look, a little bit of extra movement on the fastball, which, I mean, to me, that has to be the reason why he started to bring it back.
Yeah, and obviously, and the cutter is a pitch that it appears as a strike and then isn't, and you're trying to either get swings and misses off it, or, as you said, show a hitter something else in the bag that you've got to look for, and that should improve the swings and miss and induce less contact with the fastball. So. I think all that's become heightened in place since he incorporated that cutter more, and as long as he has confidence in that pitch, I think you can see it more often. And listen, Cole is elite in so many ways. I mean, this guy knows how to pitch. Period. Full stop. Knows what he's doing out there, and I think that can only help him at this point.
All right, I'll let you go enjoy the time in Toronto. Does a win streak like this make the vibe amongst all the media members a little bit more cheery as well? So you're not having to write about just another loss night after night.
I was telling Brian Hoke, I said, it's I think it's more interesting covering teams at the extremes. I think they're more interesting when they're winning a lot, and more interesting if they're losing a lot. You don't get a lot of. I don't think I've never covered, obviously, a Yankee team that was sub 500. They're always in it at some point, and it's always interesting, no matter whether winning or losing. There's always a storyline here. So, but yeah, it's you kind of get the vibe from what the players are going through now, and of course there's a lot of thumping nightclub music going on in the clubhouses when you enter after a game, and so you get a sense of how good they're feeling about what's going on, and it's pretty much been a nightly party after every win here.
So what you're saying is you guys covering the Yankees and then the writers covering the Reds are having the best time this year.
Well, I think they're having an interesting time. This could be they could be covering a team that surpasses the 1962 Mets for losses in a 162 game season. So I think that's a record to chase, right? That'll be interesting.
I guess. I don't know if you want to hang your hat on it, but anyway, Pete, I appreciate the time and enjoy the season.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate you having me on anytime, and I'll go back to Tim Hortons for refilling.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Bronx Pinstripes Show. Make sure you find us on iTunes and subscribe so you can get all new episodes directly onto your phone. If you do like the show, we'd love for you to take a minute and give us a 5-star rating and review in iTunes. It really helps us out and allows us to create more shows. We're on Twitter at Bronx Pinstripes and the same on Facebook. You can always find us there talking Yankee baseball. Thanks again, guys, for your support. Really appreciate it, and go Yankees.